Bob Cratchit stood up again, and he said, "Mr. Scrooge, let's drink to Mr. Scrooge." "I want to talk to Mr. Scrooge," said Mrs. Cratchit. "I want to say something to him, and he won't eat a Christmas dinner when he hears it." "Oh, no," said Bob Cratchit. "Remember the children. This is Christmas Day." "And you can only drink to a cold money-lover on Christmas Day," said Mrs. Cratchit. "You know Mr. Scrooge, Robert. Nobody knows him better than you." "Oh, no," said Bob. "This is Christmas Day." "Well," said Mrs. Cratchit, "I'll drink to him because you ask me. I hope he has a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, but I don't think he will." Mr. Scrooge's name made the party sad, but 5 minutes later they were all happy again. There was work for Peter, Bob Cratchit told them, in an office near him. The 2 young Cratchits laughed at the idea of Peter in an office. Martha began to talk about her work in the dressmaker's shop. She told them some stories about life in the shop. She said, "Tomorrow I'll stay in bed all morning for a good long sleep." They drank more hot drink, and then they sang some songs. There was one song about a child in the snow without his mother and father. Tiny Tim sang it beautifully. The ghost and Scrooge went through the dark night to the next place. They were in a light room. Scrooge heard a happy laugh. It was Fred's laugh. "Ha, ha!" laughed Fred. "Ha, ha, ha!" When Fred laughed loudly, his wife always laughed too. Then their friends had to laugh. "My Uncle Ebenezer Scrooge says humbug when you say Merry Christmas to him. He does it every time." "That's very bad," said his wife. Fred's wife was very pretty. She had a dear little mouth and lovely big brown eyes. "My uncle is a very funny man," said Fred. "I mean it. He's not nice, but he's very unhappy. So I try to be kind to him." "He's very rich, Fred," said his wife. "You're always telling me he's rich." "Well, that doesn't help him, my dear. He doesn't buy anything with it. He lives the life of a poor man. He doesn't help people with it. He doesn't think, 'Ah, I'll help that nice Fred and his pretty wife with my money. Ha, ha, ha!' He makes me angry," said his wife. His wife's sisters and the other women said the same. "Oh, I'm sorry for him," said Fred. "I couldn't be angry with him. Who's unhappy because Scrooge is hard and cold? Scrooge is. Only him." "What do you mean?" asked his wife. "He doesn't like us," said Fred. "So he doesn't come and have dinner with us. Who loses? Scrooge loses. He loses a dinner, a very good dinner. But I want to ask him for Christmas dinner again next year, because I'm sorry for him." Fred and his friends sat round the fire and sang. After that they played games. Scrooge was very interested in the games, and he wanted to play too. Then they started to play a new game. It was called Yes and No. Fred had to think of something, and the others had to ask questions about it. Fred could only answer their questions with yes or no. "Is it an animal?" "Yes." "A nice animal?" "No." "Can you find it in London?" Yes. Do you see it in the streets? Yes. Do people pay before they see it? No. Do people eat it? No. Is it a horse? No. Is it a dog? No. Is it a cat? No. Fred answered the questions, and he laughed all the time. Everybody laughed, but Fred's wife's sister was the loudest. "I know," she cried. "Fred, I know the answer." "What is it?" asked Fred. "It's your Uncle Scrooge." And it was. "Let's drink to Uncle Scrooge," said Fred. They took their glasses in their hands. "Uncle Scrooge," they cried. "A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to the old man," said Fred. Scrooge wanted to say thank you to them, but the ghost didn't give him time. He and the ghost went to many other places. They went to other countries, to the homes of rich people and the homes of poor people, to hospitals and to prisons, and everywhere the ghost wanted to help people. It was a long night, and the ghost looked older and older. Its hair was now grey. "Are ghosts' lives very short?" Scrooge asked. "My life in this world is very short," answered the ghost. "It ends tonight." "Tonight?" cried Scrooge. "Yes, tonight at midnight. Listen. It's nearly time." It was 11:45. They could hear the church clock. "Can I ask you something?" said Scrooge. "What are those strange things next to you?" The ghost showed him 2 children, a boy and a girl. They were children, but their faces weren't young. Their faces were thin, and their eyes were the eyes of hungry animals. Their clothes were very old. The 2 children sat down at the ghost's feet. "Ghost," said Scrooge, "are they yours?" "They are everybody's," said the ghost. It looked down at the children. "I don't understand," said Scrooge. "This boy could not go to school," said the ghost. "The family was too poor. It was not possible. So he learned nothing, and he knows nothing, and he will always know nothing." "And the girl?" asked Scrooge. "This girl is hungry," said the ghost. "There is no food for her." "Can't somebody help them?" cried Scrooge. "Isn't there a place for them somewhere?" "Aren't there any prisons?" said the ghost. "Aren't there any workhouses?" They were Scrooge's words. It was 12. They heard it on the church clock. Scrooge looked for the ghost, but couldn't see it. Then he remembered Marley's words, and he saw a grey ghost. It came nearer and nearer to him through the fog. Chapter 4. The Ghost of Future Christmases. The ghost was in black clothes. Scrooge couldn't see its face, only one hand in the dark night. But the ghost was tall, he thought. He was afraid of it. It came near him, but it didn't speak, and it didn't move. "Are you the ghost of future Christmases?" asked Scrooge. The ghost didn't answer, but its hand moved. The answer was yes. "You're going to show me the ghosts of possible futures," said Scrooge. "I'm afraid of you. I'm more afraid than I was with the other two ghosts. But I know that you want to help me. I hope I'll be a different man in the future, so I'll happily go with you. Why don't you speak?" The ghost didn't say anything, but its hand was in front of them. "I'll follow," said Scrooge. They left the busy centre of the city. The ghost took Scrooge to some poor streets. They were small and dirty, with small, ugly shops and houses. It was a sad place. These streets were new to him, but he knew their names. Everybody knew their names. They were the worst and poorest streets in the city. Scrooge and the ghost came to a shop. Very poor people brought things to this shop when they wanted to sell them. A man of about 70, with grey hair, sat by a small fire in the room behind the shop. When Scrooge and the ghost came into the shop, 2 women came in too. The women had heavy bags. One of them cleaned people's houses, and the other washed their clothes. Then a man in black arrived. He was an undertaker's man. They all laughed. "The cleaner can be first," said the washerwoman, "then me second, and this man third." "Right," said old Joe, the man with grey hair. "Come inside. I'll shut the door of my shop. Come into the back room." The washerwoman threw her bag on the floor of the back room and looked at the other 2. "So, Mrs. Dilber," she said, "the important thing is, what can I get from it? He always asked that question." "That's right," said Mrs. Dilber, the cleaner. "Nobody asked that question more than him." "Then who will know that we took 1 or 2 things?" "We can take things. Why not?" "Yes, why not?" said Mrs. Dilber. "Why not?" said the undertaker's man. "He's dead. He can't use these things," the washerwoman said. "That's right," said Mrs. Dilber, and she laughed. "You can't use things when you're dead." "No, you can't take your things with you, and you can't give them to anybody when there's nobody there." "There was nobody there when he died," said the undertaker's man. "Oh, that's right," said Mrs. Dilber. "Of course there was nobody there, and I'm happy about that. He was never there for anybody." "Oh, yes. Now open the bag, old Joe," said the washerwoman. "These are his things. How much money can I have for them?" Mrs. Dilber wanted to be first, but in the end the undertaker's man showed old Joe his things. Old Joe looked at everything and wrote it down. "There you are," he said to the undertaker's man, and he showed him the paper. "I'll give you this for it. I won't give you a penny more than that. Now, who's next?" The washerwoman was next. She had some clothes, but she also had some books. "I always give too much to women," said old Joe. "There you are, but don't ask me for another penny." "Now look at mine," said the cleaner. Joe opened the cleaner's bag. "What are these?" he said. "Bed curtains?" "Yes," said the cleaner, and she laughed. "Bed curtains." "Did you really take them when he was on the bed?" asked Joe. "Yes, that's right," said Mrs. Dilber. "Why not? And those are his bedclothes." "His bedclothes?" said Joe. "Yes, and there's his nightshirt. I took it from him when he was on the bed. I wasn't afraid of him, because he was dead at the time. We were all afraid of him before he was dead, but not after. Ha ha ha!" "Ghost," said Scrooge. "I understand. This was an unhappy man with an unhappy life. My life is the same. But, oh, what's this?" He was next to a bed with no curtains. On it was a man. The man was dead now. But before he died, nobody loved him. The ghost showed Scrooge the head. It was dark in the room, and Scrooge couldn't see the face. And he didn't want to see it. He looked at the bed and thought, "A love of money finished this man. Here he is, dead on his bed, and there is nobody here, not a man, woman, or child. Nobody thought, 'He was kind to me, so I will be kind to him.' Ghost," he said, "this is a strange, sad place. I am learning its lesson. Let's go." But again the ghost showed him the head of the man on the bed. "I understand you," said Scrooge, "but I don't want to see the face." The ghost looked at him. Scrooge spoke again. "Is anybody in this town sad because this man is dead?" he asked. "Show me somebody, ghost, please." The ghost moved its arm, and they were in a room. It was daytime, and a mother and child were there. The mother looked out of the window, then looked at the clock. She waited and hoped. Then she heard a noise outside the door. She went to the door quickly and met her husband. He was young, but now his face was sad. "Well," she asked, "is it good or bad?" "Bad," he answered. "Then we have no hope." "No, there is some hope, Caroline. He can be kind to us," she said, "so there is hope." "He can't be kind to us," said her husband. "Not now. He's dead. You know, I tried to see him. I wanted to ask him for 1 more week. 1 more week, and then we can pay. But he was very ill, his cleaner told me. He died later." "So who do we give the money to? Who will we have to pay?" "I don't know. But we'll have the money next week, and nobody can be worse than him. We can sleep well tonight, Caroline." "Ghost, I want to see a sad person. Is everybody always happy when somebody dies?" cried Scrooge.